Hey everybody, this is Chris Hinds, Denver City Council's District 10. I'm the council person for Denver's Perfect 10, also right there in the heart of Denver. I am coming to you for our Friday live stream and also the 5th week of our stay-at-home order. I am coming to you from my bunker. And again, if you tuned in last week, I don't actually have a bunker, but it's fun to say, so I'm pretending like I'm in some hardened military base somewhere. But anyway, I'm happy to take your questions, your thoughts, concerns, consideration. I have Facebook set up over here, so if you have anything you'd like for me to cover, please make a comment. There is a little bit of a delay between the video and the comments, or actually, there's a delay between when I record the video and when it's shown on Facebook. It's about maybe 30 seconds. So just keep that in mind. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you about a few things this week, and of course, I'll take any questions that you have. I wanted to talk about the rent proclamation that City Council unanimously passed on Monday, because we've gotten a lot of feedback, a lot of mail from folks, I would say in District 10, but there are a lot of people who aren't even in District 10 who've sent some feedback, and it appears that there's a lot of missing information, and so I wanted to share with you a bit more about the proclamation to tell you what we actually passed as opposed to what people think we passed. Also, we are not alone. We're in the city of Denver. We've been doing a lot of oh, I'm live now. That's great. I'm glad Facebook is notifying me of that. Anyway, we are not alone. The city of Denver isn't alone about budget and staffing. As you may have heard, Boulder and Aurora have issued furloughs. So I want to touch base a bit about where Denver is and those sorts of things. I also want to talk about two good things. I want to talk about recipes, and I want to talk about a time capsule project. So there you go. There's the roadmap. Let's talk about the rent proclamation. So if you tuned in on Monday, or if you saw any of the media, you probably know that the City Council passed a proclamation about rent moratoriums. What it was missing from some of the media coverage and what we actually passed was a proclamation, which is non-binding, and it was for rent and residential and commercial mortgage holders. So let's go a little bit over what the proclamation actually was or is. So the proclamation is just that. It's a proclamation. So it is kind of like how we have National Diabetes Awareness Month or whatever. It is basically a statement of the values of the city of Denver, and so there isn't actually any law that has changed by the passage that we did last Monday. It is more an advisory or suggested kind of thing, as opposed to now anyone will have any actual changes to their rent bill or their mortgage bill as a result of what we passed on Monday. So there are a lot of changes, but not because of this proclamation. So as I mentioned before, the proclamation it does, of course, include renters, but it also includes mom and pop landlords and that means both residential and commercial property owners. And so why is this important? What are our values talking about? Well, we've heard from a lot of people where we see that there's been a lot of property owners working with renters and banks working with property owners, but it isn't across the board. And sometimes you wonder, you come across a sign and it says no diving, and it's a snake pit or something like that, and you wonder, why do they have that sign? Well, sometimes the laws are passed or signs are placed not because of the majority of society, but because of the minority of society. So in this case, we have still unfortunately seen renters, excuse me, property managers and banks. So one up from the renters and the property owners, effectively continuing to demand rent and mortgage payments. And as you probably are all too aware, we're in a pandemic, and this global pandemic is affecting the entire globe. So this is a time for us really to come together and act responsibly and as neighbors, and help one another instead of trying to take advantage of what is a very bad thing that's happening to Denver and the rest of the planet. So as one example, I heard from a renter whose property owner strongly encouraged that if they lost their job, or if the renter lost their job, then they could put their rent on a credit card. And that doesn't really help renters. That doesn't really help with any sort of certainty. That just increases fear and uncertainty for renters. And we've got a lot of working families or people who were working until very recently who already have a whole lot of fear, and threatening homelessness is not helping. But another example that we have with renters is we hear that some property managers are still issuing eviction notices and rent demands. And as you may be aware, there is so the city of Denver has suspended the court system for processing evictions, and also the mayor has reassigned all of the sheriffs that would provide eviction service to other areas within the city. So no court is authorizing eviction, and no sheriff is actually processing an eviction now. But there are property owners or property managers at least that are trying to get around. They're saying you may be evicted or whatever, and so that creates even more fear and uncertainty. So, and then as an example of a property owner, we actually received documentation from a property owner this week that showed that an application for forbearance was $750 per application. And the documentation list was kind of a list of it's a laundry list of a lot of documents, both to get the application approved, and then ongoing monthly requirements. And after all that documentation, the result was an additional loan that had to be repaid in full in 12 months, or there were conditions that required it to be repaid even sooner. So that creates some uncertainty for these mom and pop property owners too. So then why did we do it if this isn't actually a law, if it's just a statement of values? Well, first of all, I think it's important for us as a city to have a system of values, and for us to have our leaders recognize that we have that system of values, and share those values when we can. The second is, while the local level may have limited influence on allowing or doing negotiation with property owners or banks, we're trying to provide additional support to our state and federal counterparts. Because they certainly have some options as well, and so we tried to give them our values and give them our support. As far as exactly what it means of whether someone can or can't pay their rent or mortgage, we kind of left that a little amalgamous too. But really, it's because we don't want to tell our state and federal counterparts how to do their jobs. We just want to give them the strength and support to help them be more forceful. And at the end of the day, big banks already got a bailout in 2008, and they already got a bailout here in just a couple weeks ago. So we want to make sure that money trickles down. We've heard a lot about trickle down economics, and so we want to make sure that the money actually trickles down, and that people are following both the letter and spirit of the law. So issuing eviction notices that you may get evicted is not really in the spirit of the law, or creating the vehicle, but making that vehicle so difficult that people don't even want to apply for mortgage forbearance is an example of following the letter but not the spirit of the law. So I hope that provides a little additional information about the proclamation. If you have additional questions, again, let us know. Next, I want to talk about our budget, our city's budget and staffing. So you may have seen a little bit in the news. We already are anticipating here in the city of Denver $180 million budget shortfall. And the crazy thing is that we already set our budget for 2020. So all of this shortfall is something that we're, it's like quicksand. The budget is evaporating underneath us, and we're kind of getting swallowed up by it. So it has been kind of a crazy time, obviously, for all of us, but a crazy time for the city too, as far as budget is concerned. And so far, $180 million, the city is looking at a 12% contraction in the budget so far. But on top of that, just last week alone, 105,000 Coloradans filed for unemployment. That is more than all of 2019. And so that's just one more data point of how complete this quicksand is, and how much we're getting sucked in very quickly. As you may have read, Boulder furloughed 737 of their employees starting on Monday, and Aurora has furloughed 576 of their employees starting on Monday. We as a city have not made any decisions on furloughs or reductions in force, but certainly labor is a component of our budget, and we want to make sure that we can provide essential services. So we're looking into all that we can do as a city, and frankly all that we can do as a city council and as an office in District 10. So we're trying to do our part too, to make sure that we have everything that we can have for you, and yet we still have to balance our budget. So So the local level has to balance its budget. The state level is constitutionally required to carry a balanced budget. The federal level can print money or issue bonds, or do whatever the federal level does, but they're not required to keep a balanced budget. So let's see. Right. So we don't know exactly what the changes will be just yet, because we don't know what the full extent of COVID is just yet. So a couple other things. We're very close to sending out our newsletter for this week. As you may know, we started with monthly newsletters, but the information is changing so quickly and shifting so much that we've moved to weekly newsletters, and we don't get a lot of feedback that's positive. The good news is that we're getting a lot of positive feedback about our newsletter. So if you haven't subscribed, I would encourage you to join our newsletter. We actually had some thoughts and suggestions on adding recipes, because the best way to some people's hearts are through their stomach, and and we also want to make sure that we stay nourished, because many times our diet can influence how we feel, and we want to make sure that we have every opportunity to feel as positive as we possibly can, particularly as many of us are getting cooped up and So we want to encourage people to have a good, healthy diet, and we actually have 2 recipes that will be in the newsletter that will be sent out here in the next couple hours. One is graciously provided by Alex Slidell, who's well-renowned in the industry. He lives here in Colorado. He has a restaurant in District 10, which is awesome, and I really want to thank him for providing content for our newsletter and content for your belly. So the next thing I want to talk about is, I guess I titled it the Time Capsule Project, but I want to talk about 2 things. We have it's important for us as elected officials to be accountable, and we have had an erosion of our journalism nationally and in the state and in our city, and it's making it more difficult for those of us who want to represent our constituents using facts. And this latest, the pandemic has created even more pressure on our journalism industry here in Denver. And so I really want to give a shout out to our journalists, our local journalists. I really thank you for all you do. And for those who have recently been furloughed or are terminated, I am so sorry. It is important to me that we have a vibrant fourth estate. I know that means that I am more accountable, but I think that makes it for a healthy democracy. So one of the things that I want to do to support local journalism is we're trying to figure out a way to lift up our local journalists. And so I've reached out to some of our journalists. If any of you paying attention or watching now are local journalists, please let me know, and I can help connect you with the people that I know who are doing some of the organizing, and you probably already know if you're a local journalist. But another thing that I want to lift up, speaking of local journalism, is an idea that we had in our District 10 office that was regarding the time capsule. So I think that we're really in right now. We're in one of those once in a generation kinds of things, events. Like, I know where I was when the towers fell, when 9/11 happened. I know where I was when the Challenger exploded, when the space shuttle exploded, and I wasn't very old, but I was there. I was alive. And while I don't know where I was because I wasn't alive, I know a lot of people. Maybe for the next generation before that, it's when Kennedy was shot. And I really think that right now in our pandemic, this is one of those times. This is one of those once in a generation events that is really will transform our society. And so I want to give a shout out to Denverite, and Kevin Beatty is doing the organizing for this, but he is putting together a time capsule project, and I'm really excited to see some of this, some of the product that comes out of it, because the time capsule, I think, is really intriguing. I would love to have captured more thoughts of where people were when 9/11 happened, and now with phones that can record and access to cameras and recording equipment, we can actually, as individuals and as a community, we can document what this is like, and I think that would be really compelling, and to reflect back on. I was talking with one of our partners at the city actually early this morning, and he was saying that he just talked with his girls, and he was trying to his daughters, and he was telling them to write an essay of how they feel right now, and he didn't even know about this time capsule project, and so I think that's it's something that is on a lot of people's minds, and I think that it would be really interesting and exciting for us to capture how we feel and where we are today. So if you, I guess I should have gotten the URL before I went live, but what I will do, oh, here it is. So there's a Denverite article that says, help us document social distancing in Denver. So let's see if I can paste it into so I'm a little sad that that we didn't get faster on this idea, but really I think Denverite is a better place or a better home for the project, because they probably are better set up for something like this. But I'm really excited to see what you can come up with, and I would encourage you to go visit Denverite and share where you are in the pandemic. So looks like we're close to time. So I don't see any questions. So I will I'll sign off here in a minute. I do want to thank again Chef Alex Seidel and Barbara M., a constituent, for the recipes that will be going out in the newsletter here in the next couple hours. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful weekend.